What happens when you build your entire life on a shadow? Can a seed of truth ever truly bloom in soil tainted by lies? Imagine a fish seller tossing in agony on a bed of exquisite, fragrant flowers, only able to find peace when she returns to the familiar stench of decay. It begs the question, are we, too, addicted to the stench of our own falsehoods? We walk through life wearing masks. We nod along, claiming to have read the non-existent Seventh Veda, and boast of knowing a God we have never truly met. It is this very illusion that sealed the lips of the mighty warrior Bhishma. As terrible injustice raged before him, his courage was paralyzed, his very blood tainted by the sinful wealth he consumed. Wealth that, as Guru Nanak miraculously revealed, bleeds the sorrow of the innocent, while the honest labor of a humble farmer flows with pure, nourishing milk. Remember the great warrior Karna. A single, desperate lie to his guru cost him his supreme weapon and ultimately his life. Yet, the mystic Kabir walked a different path, proving that even a confessed theft, when surrendered utterly and purely to the divine, transforms into absolute, unbreakable truth. Truth is not just a word. It is Satyam Shivam Sundaram. It is the pure, timeless emptiness where the divine resides. Are you ready to strip away the heavy illusion of Maya? To cleanse your karma and step into the profound, infinite light? The journey to your ultimate awakening begins now.
Today's satsang is based on the topic, can truth be found while living in falsehood? When we live in falsehood, we are very far from the truth. If the truth lies in the east and we dwell in falsehood, we are traveling toward the west. The east and the west can never meet. There is a story of two friends. One works as a fish seller, and the other as a flower seller. One day, the flower seller invites the fish seller to her home. She serves her a meal and then prepares a beautiful bed of flowers so that her friend can rest peacefully. However, the flower seller notices that her friend is tossing and turning in agony on the bed of flowers. Sleep is completely out of the question. She is so restless and miserable that it looks as though she has been thrown into a fire and death is waiting for her. The flower seller cannot understand what is wrong. Seeing this, an elderly neighbor says to the flower seller, "Why are you making her suffer? Just let her sleep next to her fish, and she will happily fall into a deep, peaceful slumber." In the end, reluctantly, she let her friend sleep right next to her fish basket and moved all the flowers far away. Within a short time, she noticed that her friend had fallen into a very deep and peaceful sleep. The flower seller simply could not understand this. It was completely beyond her comprehension. In due time, she realized the deeper meaning. Because her friend was accustomed to living in the stench of falsehood, she could not tolerate the fragrance of truth and became intensely restless. When a person lives in falsehood, they cannot understand the truth at all. And if they cannot even understand the truth, how can they possibly attain it? The fish seller could not bear the fragrance of the flowers, whereas a truthful seeker constantly yearns for that very fragrance. Therefore, your internal vibrations dictate the kind of people you are drawn to and the state you wish to remain in. By living in falsehood, your entire life becomes false. Even the vibrations of your body become false, and gradually, you drift further and further away from the truth. Now, let us understand what the truth really is. There is a universal phrase that is present everywhere. Satyam Shivam Sundaram means truth, the divine, and beauty. If you live in the truth, your nature becomes like Lord Shiva, you take on the form of the divine, and you awaken to immense beauty. Now, you can see for yourself that attaining the truth while living in falsehood is completely impossible. Only by residing in the truth can you awaken your divine nature, and only then can you live the most beautiful life. This world is Maya, the illusion. It is bound by time, and this in itself is falsehood. To step into the truth, you must enter a timeless state. You have to move toward the light and enter a state of pure emptiness. Therefore, truth and falsehood lead in entirely opposite directions. If you live in falsehood, you remain entangled in the worldly illusion. Only when you are established in the truth can you reach the divine. That is why the Supreme Divine is called Satnam, the true name. In life, to hide just one single truth, you end up telling over 1,000 lies. The truth naturally reveals itself completely, but if you try to hide it, you have to resort to falsehood. As a result, falsehood becomes your very life, and you end up living continuously in a lie. A Sadguru, an ultimate wise spiritual guide, was once invited to an ashram to deliver a spiritual discourse. The Sadguru did not want to go there. He knew very well that all the people there lived in falsehood and spoke only falsehood, merely wearing the guise of truth for show. After much insistence, the Sadguru finally arrived. When he stood up to address the gathering, he began by asking, "You consider yourselves to be so intelligent. You study the Vedas, you recite the Gita, and you read the Puranas." Then, he posed a single question to everyone: "Have you read the Seventh Veda?" Everyone raised their hands, acting as if they had indeed read it. However, one person did not raise his hand. The Sadguru expressed surprise. Only one hadn't read it, while everyone else had. He approached that person and asked, "Have you not read the Seventh Veda?" The man replied, "I couldn't hear what you were asking." Then, he quickly added, "Yes, I have read it." The Sadguru then stepped back in front of the crowd and declared, "There is no such thing as a Seventh Veda. Yet, all of you claim to have read it. When it does not even exist, how could you possibly have read it?" By living in falsehood, you only speak the language of falsehood. Even when you do not know something, you pretend as though you know everything. If this is your state of being, you can never reach the truth. At the very least, bring some truthfulness into your life. There should be no difficulty in simply admitting, "I have not read it." Instead, you choose to lie, claiming to know about something that does not even exist. A great Sadguru was once invited to deliver a discourse to share his thoughts on God. Being a deeply enlightened master, he knew very well that the society was immersed in falsehood. It was an untrue society, yet they claimed they wanted to know about the Lord. Initially, he did not even wish to attend this gathering. However, when he did arrive, he asked the audience just one question: "Do you know God?" Everyone replied, "Yes, we know the Lord." Hearing this, the Sadguru said, "If you already know the Lord, then what can I possibly tell you about Him?" With that, the Sadguru got up and left. The listeners were deeply disappointed. The next day, they respectfully pleaded with him and invited him back. When he arrived on the second day, he asked the exact same question: "Do you know the Lord?" This time, everyone replied, "No, we do not know the Lord." The Sadguru then said, "If you do not even know the Lord at all, then what can I possibly tell you about Him?" And once again, he walked away without giving a discourse. On the third day, he was invited once more, and though reluctant, he went. This time as well, he asked the exact same question: "Do you know the Lord?" Half of the people replied that they knew him, while the other half said they did not. In simple words, the Sadguru replied, "Those who do not know should just consult with those who do, so that the matter is resolved for everyone." And once again, he left without giving a discourse. He knew very well that no one there actually knew anything. After the gathering respectfully pleaded with him one final time, he returned. The Sadguru asked the very same question. This time, everyone sitting there simply lowered their heads. No one uttered a single word. They had finally aligned themselves with the truth. Recognizing that they truly knew nothing about the Lord, they surrendered to silence. It was only then that the Sadguru fully explained to them who the Lord truly is, how He can be attained, the practices to observe, and the spiritual path one must follow. The sole purpose of this short story is to help us realize that we live in falsehood. Whether we reside in an ashram or function within our own organizations, we are living a lie. We live completely in falsehood, we speak only falsehood, and yet, we wish to attain the truth. How is this even possible? Until you become like that which you seek, how can you possibly attain it? To attain the truth, you must become one with it. If you live surrounded by a foul stench, you cannot even sense a beautiful fragrance. Truth is that fragrance. A person who dwells in a stench can never truly understand fragrance. Consider an incident from the life of Bhishma Pitama. During the disrobing of Draupadi, Bhishma Pitama was present in the court. Dronacharya was there, Karna was there, Duryodhan was there, all the great warriors were present, yet no one spoke a single word. It was only after Lord Krishna came to Draupadi's rescue that they realized Draupadi was being disgraced right in front of us. So why did we all sit in silence? Why didn't we protest? Bhishma Pitamaha reflected on this question deeply and looked within himself. What happened to me that I could not utter a single word? Usually, in every assembly, I voice my opposition against falsehood, yet here, I remained completely silent. And when Draupadi questioned him about it, with tear-filled eyes, he explained to her, living on wealth earned through falsehood and sin, every single cell of my body had become tainted. I had drifted very far from the truth. The very blood flowing in my veins was burdened by sin, because I was surviving on sinful earnings. By consuming the food provided in those palaces, my inner tendencies became just like it. I could not even think of standing up for the truth, even though such an injustice was happening right in front of my eyes. He further explained, the company I kept and the wealth I relied on to live had such a deep impact on me that, despite witnessing such terrible misbehavior, I had lost all my inner strength to protest. It was the result of impure food, the influence of falsehood, and the burden of sinful wealth that had turned my very mind sinful. By living in falsehood, a person's inner nature and tendencies also become false, and they drift further and further away from the truth. During his spiritual journey, when Guru Nanak Sahib arrived in a village, the people gave him a grand welcome. Everyone welcomed him warmly, the wealthy, the laborers, and the poor alike. A wealthy man invited him to his home for a meal, and a humble farmer also extended the same invitation. Guru Nanak Sahib said, I will go to the farmer's house. Hearing this, the wealthy man became deeply disappointed and distressed. He simply could not understand what to do or how to handle this rejection. Seeing his troubled state, Guru Nanak Sahib said, I will come to your house for the meal. Then, he turned to the farmer and said, bring the food you wish to offer me to the wealthy man's house instead. When Guru Nanak Sahib arrived for the meal, on one side was the humble farmer's food, consisting of just 2 flatbreads and a little onion. On the other side was a lavish feast with every kind of delicacy. Guru Nanak Sahib gazed at both the meals. He picked up a flatbread belonging to the wealthy man and squeezed it in his hand, and drops of blood trickled out. Then, he took the farmer's flatbread and squeezed it, and drops of milk flowed from it. Guru Nanak Sahib then said, this is the reward of honest, hard work, this is the earning of truth. That is why it contains milk. Turning to the wealthy man, he said, you know very well how you amass your wealth, how you conduct your affairs, and how you exploit the poor. That very blood of the poor is exactly what is oozing out of your bread. Therefore, wealth acquired through falsehood makes even your physical body unwell. When you feed your children with such earnings, their intellect fails to develop properly. Whatever wealth you accumulate through dishonest means ends up being spent entirely on your miseries and illnesses. Furthermore, your mind remains restless and devoid of peace. In due time, when your children grow up, they too engage in misdeeds and end up ruining their lives. Thus, until you earn your living through truth and honesty, you will never find peace in your life, you will never be able to understand the truth, nor will you ever draw closer to the divine. Once, in a forest, sage Parashurama was sitting with his disciple, Karna. Feeling drowsy, the Guru rested his head on Karna's lap and fell into a deep sleep. Suddenly, a large insect appeared and fiercely bit Karna's leg. It began to bleed, and Karna experienced agonizing pain. However, he did not utter a single word or move a muscle, simply because his Guru was peacefully resting on his lap. When the stream of blood flowed so heavily that it touched Parashurama, he woke up in astonishment. He thought to himself, such immense tolerance? A Brahman cannot possibly possess this level of physical endurance. The truth became completely clear to him. He immediately questioned Karna, saying, "You cannot be a Brahman, you must be a Kshatriya. Only Kshatriyas possess such remarkable endurance." Karna could no longer maintain the lie and humbly confessed, "I spoke an untruth to you only so that I could learn the divine knowledge of archery." Parashurama could not take back the knowledge he had imparted. He simply declared, "When you need to use the Brahmastra, the supreme weapon I have taught you, at the exact moment of your greatest need, you will forget the mantras required to invoke it." Thus, bearing both the divine knowledge and a heavy curse, Karna took his leave from Parashurama. And because of this single falsehood, when he desperately needed to summon the Brahmastra, he could not remember the mantras, and he ultimately had to lay down his life in the great war of the Mahabharata. The sole purpose of this story is to remind us that, when the crucial time comes, falsehood will only delude and betray you, preventing you from reaching your goal. If you cannot even reach your worldly destinations, how can you possibly reach the divine through the path of untruth? Living in falsehood, whatever actions are performed while dwelling in a state of untruth will ultimately bring only sorrow, and the supreme truth can never be attained. A Sadguru wrote in his life story, "My relatives took away all my wealth. I was reduced to such extreme poverty that I was completely helpless. That very morning, I went to take a holy bath in the river Ganges." He further wrote, "A great, enlightened saint approached me and said, 'There is no need to worry. They took your wealth, but along with it, all your sins have been washed away. Otherwise, you would have simply lived off that wealth and never attained your true spiritual goal. The Lord has done a wonderful thing." Continuing his story, he shared, "In that moment, I felt immense comfort and peace, even though I was left with absolutely nothing. Yet, within just a few days of that bath in the Ganges, my life was once again filled with abundance and prosperity. On the other hand, my relatives, who had taken everything from me through lies and deceit, were reduced to absolute ruin. All their wealth was completely wiped out by theft and robbery. Therefore, the Lord Himself creates paths to ensure that you do not live on wealth gained through falsehood, making it completely smooth for you to walk the path of truth. The Lord knows our past, our present, and our future. He knows exactly which path we must take. When Lord Rama killed Bali, he struck from hiding, adopting an untruthful method. Later, when the Lord incarnated as Krishna, a hunter accidentally shot him with an arrow. Upon being struck, Lord Krishna told the hunter, "This is not your fault. In a previous age, when I was in the form of Rama, I took your life using a method of falsehood. Do not despair. You have simply fulfilled your karma, and I have accepted the consequences of mine." Whenever an action is rooted in falsehood, its karmic debt must be paid, not only by an ordinary person, but even by the Lord Himself. However, when you do not engage in any falsehood yourself, yet society acts falsely toward you, the Lord will always protect you. Kalidasa, who authored the famous play Shakuntala, was initially so foolish that he would cut the very branch of the tree he was sitting on. A group of scholars conspired and, through deceit, arranged for this foolish man to be married to a highly learned and wise woman. They lied to her, even though she was a devoted follower of the path of truth. Thus, her marriage to Kalidasa was orchestrated entirely through falsehood. However, she did not panic or despair. Using her profound wisdom, in a very short time, she completely transformed Kalidasa, who was utterly ignorant, into a great scholar. This was made possible by the grace of the Lord, because she herself stood firmly in the truth. When falsehood is unjustly forced upon you, the Lord Himself becomes your protector. Truth has the divine power to absorb and dissolve falsehood into itself. As a glorious result, Kalidasa awakened into a magnificent scholar. He went on to write Shakuntala, a masterpiece that is renowned across the entire world. Once, Kabirji faced a severe shortage of grain. This was a deep concern because he fed his devotees every single day. Whoever visited him would first participate in divine devotion, and Kabirji would never let them leave without serving them a meal. One day, his son Kamal said, "There is absolutely nothing left in the house. What will we feed them now? Should we commit a robbery at someone's house?" Kabirji calmly replied, "You have made quite a suggestion." Kamal then proposed, "Let us break into the grocer's house and bring back a sack of grain." Kabirji agreed. They went to the grocer's house, broke in, and Kabirji went inside. Just as they were about to carry the sack of grain out, Kabirji paused and said, "Brother, we should at least wake the grocer and tell him that we are stealing from him." What we are doing is wrong, and it is an act of falsehood. But by confessing it to him, we will at least be upholding the truth. When they woke the grocer and told him this, the grocer simply replied, "Brother, this is not a theft at all. You are doing this for the Lord. Whatever is done for the sake of the divine is an act of greatness. It is the path of truth itself. Thus, whatever is done purely for the divine becomes the path of truth, even if it appears you are walking through falsehood to reach it. Therefore, if you wish to walk the path of the Lord, you cannot attain him through falsehood. You must embrace the path of truth. It is only through the path of truth that one can reach the divine. But what exactly is this path of truth? The path of truth is the constant remembrance of the Lord, deep devotion, and the practice of meditation. You can only walk this path of meditation when there is absolute stillness and emptiness within you, when all the toxic impurities have been completely expelled from your being, leaving behind perfect emptiness, filled only with the pure oxygen of truth. When you finally achieve this state and surrender yourself completely to the divine, only then will your consciousness awaken. It will rise like an electric current through your spinal cord, reaching the thousand-petaled lotus at the crown of your head, and merge seamlessly with the universe. In that ultimate moment, you will exist in absolute, supreme truth. Therefore, truth is the only path to attain the Lord. You cannot attain the truth, nor can you attain the Lord, through the path of falsehood. The divine is absolute truth. He is like 100% pure gold. If you mix even the slightest impurity into it, it becomes falsehood. Become completely pure. A person can only achieve this absolute purity when they enter a state of complete emptiness. Emptiness itself is absolute purity. Nothing else can remain within it. So, awaken this complete emptiness within yourself. Emptiness is the very form of the Supreme. Emptiness is truth. Emptiness is the fragrance of the flowers, and emptiness is the form of the Lord. You can achieve this emptiness through the chanting of mantras, through Kriya Yoga, through the practice of conscious breathing, or by surrendering yourself completely to the divine. Whichever method you choose, emptiness is the ultimate truth. Only by distancing yourself from falsehood can you merge yourself with the divine. Through this understanding, you will be able to effortlessly walk the path of Satyam Shivam Sundaram, that is truth, auspiciousness, and beauty, and become one with the Lord. May the divine guide us on the path of truth, so that we may embrace Satyam Shivam Sundaram in our lives and merge with that supreme power. All of this is possible only through the grace of the Lord. It is a heartfelt prayer that the Lord bestows His grace upon us all, so that we may finally become one with Him. Thank you.